Today we're going to talk about the Bigtree SKR version 1.3. I'm going to talk about the power first. First we have our main power connection. You can do either 12 or 24 volts. The little red marking I made here is positive. This is negative. Next we have our heat bed, which is positive here, negative here. And then we have our hot ends, or possibly fans, depending upon how you configure it. So we have one hot end here, another one here. Then we have a fan connection right here. Next we have our stepper ports, and they've done something interesting with stepper ports now. There's multiple configurations that you can do without having to use jumper wires to other pins. So we have jumpers here that are in the default position when it arrives, and then we have two additional pins for our diag and controlling UART. So that's our X connector, this is our Y connection, this is our Z connection, here's our E0, and then our E1. Over here we have our end stops, so we have X minimum, X max, Y minimum, Y max, then we have Z minimum, and then Z max. A couple of other interesting things here. We have breakout pins to add a second stepper to the same axis, so you can add a port that will connect an additional stepper connection right here. We also have these red ones here for X UART, Y UART, Z UART, and then E0 and E1 UART. In addition to that, we have a port right here for only one servo, and then down here when the board arrives, the default connection for the jumper is in power only mode, meaning that you have to have 12 volts of power or 24 to run it. So we're going to move this over to these two pins so we can run it off our USB, and I'll be doing that in most of my videos for simplicity's sake. So you're going to place that there and then just push it down. Over here we have our TF card reader. It comes with a default card. It's 128 megabytes. We have our USB connection for serial here. Then we have two fuses that you can use or interchange, meaning that if they blow you can just pull a car fuse and then pop in a new one. We have our auxiliary 1 port here that can be used for TFT LCDs, so a touchscreen LCD. The processor is actually 32-bit versus the normal 8-bit that I normally do. And then we have our thermistor connections here. So we have our two hot ends, and then we also have our heat bed. That helps us tell temperature for the actual temperature that we're running at. Then we have two ports here, EXP1 and EXP2. Those will be used for an LCD display. So you can actually run your LCD with the EXP1 and 2 and a TFT if you choose. We also have a reset button down here. And then we have various pins that have to do with diagnostics, I believe, for the steppers. I still have to read up on this a little bit more. And then over here in the upper left hand corner we have a 12 or 24 volt output power, depending upon what you use for your power supply. And so in a moment I'm going to flip this over so you can see the underside and other possible connections that we can use it for. So hang on. Okay, as you can see, this is the underside of the Bigtree SKR version 1.3. So I want to point out a couple of things to you. There are actual silkscreen letters on the board to help you figure out where to connect things. For instance, for our steppers, we now have an EN pin here for our enable. We also have our direction pin and our ground pin. This will help you actually orient your stepper driver into the actual stepper ports on the other side of the board. In a second, I'm going to show you how to connect the USB and prepare the SKR version 1.3 for loading firmware. Okay, in order to load the Marlin firmware on our SKR version 1.3, we have to make sure that the TF drive is actually inserted. This is 128 megabytes, so we're going to push that in. Next, we're going to connect the serial USB for the big side right here, and we're going to connect the small side to the computer, and you're going to hear a beep. And in a moment, I'm going to show you the pinouts to the SKR version 1.3. Okay, here is the pinout diagram for the SKR version 1.3. It explains all the pins around the board and their pin numbers. So if you go to the pins_SKR for Big Tree in your Marlin subfolder, you'll be able to see what the pins relate to based on their numbers. So there's one more thing I want to show you that I haven't shown you yet, and that's we need to connect the USB drive again so I can show you something as to what it looks like. So here we go. I'm going to disconnect it. Now I'm going to reconnect it. And when it pops up, it says firmware.cur. That's the current firmware that's on your TF drive. Now keep in mind that when you load a new firmware on here, it might be a binary, so you want to enable your extensions so you can see what's occurring in your control panel. Currently, I've removed the enable hide for extensions, being the 3 letters at the end, so you can see what's actually there. So in a moment, I'll show you in Platform I/O on Atom how we're going to load the Marlin firmware. Okay, I've opened up Atom with the plugin for Platform I/O. Now, if you normally want to open this, I usually type Atom and then I click on this, but seeing how it's already open for this tutorial for brevity, I'm going to show you what it looks like in Atom. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the core folder over here. Keep in mind that we're opening the whole folder for Marlin, which is right here. And I'm going to select boards.h and open that up. And we need to find the board, so we're going to do a search on SKR. And as you can see, there's a couple, but the one that we're interested in is board_bigtree_SKR_V1_3. So we're going to copy that. Next thing we're going to do is close this out. We're going to go over and we're going to find the configuration.h. This is one of the main 2 configurations that we're going to use. The other one's configuration_advanced.h, but I'll show you that later. We're going to go into configuration.h and we're going to do a search on motherboard. And what we have here is board_ramps_14_EFB. So we're going to paste what we just copied. So now it's board_bigtree_SKR_V1_3. Next thing we need to do is scroll up here, and under ports for the serial port 1, we need to make some changes. So we're going to scroll up here, and as you can see right now it's defined as define serial port 0. We're going to change that to a -1. That's what we have to do in this case. So we're good there. So the next thing we're going to do is scroll down and we're going to open up platform-i/o. And inside here, there's a couple of things that we got to learn real quick here. So we have a default environment which is set to the Mega ATmega 2560. That's the chipset for the boards _ramps _14 EFB. So we need to change that to the correct board that we're working with in platform platform IO. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to find our particular chipset. In this case, it's going to be right here. It's going to be LPC 1768. So we're going to copy that. And as you can see, it's for the LPC 176X ARMS Cortex-M processor. So we're going to scroll back up. And where it says environment _default, we're going to highlight the Mega ATmega 2560 and we're going to paste what we just copied. So we're all set there. So the next thing that we need to do is, this is very similar to the Arduino IDE, in that we're going to do the forward arrow, which will compile and then upload to the SKR 1.3. So in a moment, I'll show you what it looks like after it's loaded on the SKR 1.3. And now that we have finished loading the firmware, we can verify that it compiled correctly by going to Platform and then going to Toggle Build Panel so we can see what occurred. And as we can see, it says success. It took a while, but it's success. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check to see what the actual USB drive looks like on the SKR 1.3. So I'm going to toggle over to it real quick here. So it's our D drive in this case. And as you can see, there is a firmware.cur, which is our current. And then we have a firmware.bin. Okay, I'm going to remove the USB. Now I'm going to replace it, and you'll see what happens on the computer in just a second. Now that we go back to the D drive, we can see that it just says firmware.cur. What's occurred is that the bin file that we had on there is now copied over and now is firmware.cur. So in a moment, I'm going to show you in Pronterface what it looks like. Okay, we're in the Pronterface folder for print run. So I'm going to open this up. Remember, the link is in the description for where to download it. We're going to connect to the SKR 1.3. And as you can see, it says that it's connecting. And now it says the printer is online, so it's going to be a little bit truncated from normal. So to check that it's actually what we loaded, we can type M115 and press enter. And as you can tell, it says that we've got the Marlin bug fix -2.0.x. And if you want to check what the status of, let's say, your end stops are, which right now we have none connected, so they should all be triggered, we'll type M119 and press enter. So if you like my tutorial, please like and subscribe. Thank you for your time, and keep in mind that more will be coming. So thank you very much.